there's the, they changed the statute.
Well, welcome to our November Audit Committee meeting. I want to start off by first congratulating Frank Barbieri for being reelected as chair of the school board, so congratulations to you, Frank. And also I want to introduce our newest Audit Committee member, Kathleen Wiggle. Kathleen, it's really nice to have you with us. And we appreciate it.
Hello, Kathleen.
He's just going to add something to
Huh?
the very end.
That's fine.
He is.
Thank you.
What about it?
I'm going to add one more thing at the very end right there. Okay.
Well, bring it back. Okay, I think as is tradition, we'll go around the room and have everyone introduce each other, and we'll start with Blair, as always, please.
Blair Littlejohn from the Office of General Counsel.
Frank Barbieri, School Board.
James Campbell, Principal, Seminole Ridge High School.
Maria Lloyd, Principal, Limestone Creek.
Tammy McDonald, Audit Committee. Vice Chair.
Dave Talley, Audit Committee.
Luke Chu, Inspector General.
Joyce Edison, IG Office.
Michael Dixon, Audit Committee.
Kathy Weigel, Audit Committee.
Mike Burke, CFO.
Nancy Samuels, Accounting Director.
Brett Friedman, RSM.
Chantel Knowles, RSM.
Okay, could you introduce yourself, please?
Elaine Hubbard-Williams, Director of Support Services.
Thanks, Elaine. And now, over here, we'll start with Emma Banks, Principal Banks.
Wonderful.
Okay, thank you very much. Looking at the approval of the agenda, Mr. Chu, are there any amendments to the agenda?
No, sir.
Okay, I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second? Come on, somebody on the board second the approval of the agenda. Thank you. I'll second that. Okay. Next on the agenda is to look at the minutes of the September 20th meeting, and after you get a second to review those, I'd accept a motion to approve those minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor? There you go. Passed unanimously. Next is the approval of the July 18th minutes that were amended.
What was amended in the minutes?
Beg pardon?
What was the amendment to the minutes?
I don't know, what was it?
I think it was the section that has to do with the Transportation Department. It was omitted before. Is that correct, Joy?
Yes.
I think so.
Ask that it be included.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the July 18th amended minutes. Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed unanimously. Public comments. I don't see any public comment cards. Would this be a good time to have Emma speak or not? She's here.
The items, Mr. Chairman.
Emma, we're going to wait till we get down to your item, which will be in just a minute. Okay, seeing no public comments, we'll go on to item 4, the RSM report, audit report.
All right, thank you. Good morning again. Brett Friedman, partner with RSM, and I have with me Chantel Knowles, our manager on the audit. We were charged with doing a financial audit this year, focusing on the comprehensive annual financial report. You should have received our report to the board regarding our audit results, and we're just going to briefly walk you through those required communications. So if you turn into the document, go into page 1 of the document. Do it. Page 1 of the document, you'll see the highlights first, our responsibilities under auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America and government auditing standards, as well as also our professional services contract with the district dated March 16, 2017, and our audit arrangement letter dated October 23, 2019. At the beginning of the audit, we sent a letter to the committee and to the board members just advising them of the planned timing. Key thing there is that we are here exactly on time when the report was expected to be issued, allowing the district to make sure it files timely for the GFOA and for the state of Florida. Next thing, as far as accounting policies and procedures, just want to point out the adoption of new standards. In the current year, there were no significant new accounting policies. There was a change due to GASB Statement 88, and that relates to direct placement offerings. So there's some disclosure changes in the debt footnote, but that's the only change. You know, coming up, there were bigger things like next year the district will have to deal with GASB 84, dealing with fiduciary funds, and then later with GASB 87 on leases. Continuing on, as far as significant or unusual transactions, we did not identify any significant or unusual transactions, anything that lacks authoritative guidance. There we go, yep, a little lower. One of the things we always point out to everybody is management's judgments and accounting estimates. In these financials, the bulk of it is either cash spent or cash received. You know, where you can have potential improprieties or issues comes into management's estimates, because those are involving some judgment in there. So once I walk through the communications, Chantel will briefly highlight the key estimates for you. Next, to point out, there were no audit adjustments made to the original trial balance to begin the audit. You know, the importance of that is that should give you comfort with the financial information that Mike and Nancy and the team give you throughout the year, that it's reliable, because we do really look hard to find things, and no audit adjustments. Uncorrected misstatements, those are items that are deemed to be quantitatively, qualitatively immaterial, but we still bring them to your attention. During the audit, there were no disagreements with management over accounting practices. We didn't identify anything where they were taking aggressive approaches or anything that was inappropriate in accordance with standards. Also, as far as we're aware, there were no consultations with other auditors or accountants. During the audit, we had no significant issues or difficulties in performing the audit. As part of this audit also, we issued a report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance and other matters based on audit of financial statements performed in accordance with government auditing standards. With regard to that, also positive thing to let you know is there's no issues there to report. Typically, if there were material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in the school board's internal control structure, we would be responsible for reporting those in that area. In this case, there's nothing to report there. Also included in this package is copies of significant written communications, the biggest thing there being the management representation letter, which is all the representations that management makes to us throughout the audit, because part of what's involved is inquiring and requesting documents. So management asserting that the documents are true and accurate copies, things of that nature. Next, to continue on, I'm going to go ahead and have Chantel just briefly go over, as I said, the estimates, since these are the greatest area of risk.
Hi, good morning. As Brett mentioned, I'll just briefly go over the significant accounting estimates that the district has. Starting with the first one is accounting for other post-employment benefits. With all of these significant estimates, for the majority of them, the district hires a third-party specialist to help them develop what those estimates would be. So for their OPEB estimate, that was then sent to an actuary that then determined what they thought their liability should be. For that estimate, we also send all of those reports, those actual reports, to our internal actuaries as well, to review the assumptions that are used by the district's actuary. And for all of those estimates, none of our actuary didn't have any issues with any of the assumptions or the estimate. The liability is actually recorded by the district. The next significant estimate is for the pension plans. The district is part of the Florida retirement system, so that actuary is actually hired by the state of Florida. So as part of that, we still get that actual report from the Auditor General, and we send that report as well to our actuaries for review of those assumptions. The next estimate is for the self-insurance. The district is self-insured for their general liability, auto, workers' comp, as well as health insurance. We also sent that report to our actuaries to review the assumptions as well as the liability that's recorded by the district. We didn't have any issues with any of those assumptions that were utilized. And the last one is for the depreciation for capital assets. Brett already mentioned the next part of the report just includes all the representations that management made to us during the audit. It also includes the summary of the uncorrected misstatements if you wanted to look over those. As Brett mentioned, those are not significant and they weren't required by us to be recorded by the district. Moving along, that's at least about 3 or 4 pages, the representation letters. There's also another representation letter for attestation report that we have to issue that's at the end of this report, this package, that is on the district's compliance with the Florida statutes regarding investment policies. If you continue on, those are the past adjustments that the district did not record that we mentioned were not considered significant for the audit. And then after that, the next report is our report on internal control over financial reporting. As Brett mentioned, it was a clean report. We didn't find any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in the district's internal controls over financial reporting.
Through the spring of 2022.
Oh, that's still the representation letter, sorry. And then that's the second representation letter. That's for the attestation report for the investments. And this one is the one that I just went over. That's the opinion that is on the internal control over financial reporting. And up next is the management letter. So we're required to issue a management letter in accordance with the government auditing standards and the rules of the Auditor General. As part of that, we're required to follow up if there are any prior audit findings. We did not have any recommendations in the previous audit, so we didn't have to follow up on any prior auditing findings for that. We're also required to review the district's financial condition and go through various financial condition assessments. As part of that, in connection with the audit, we determined that the district didn't meet any of those conditions. We also did not have any recommendations to improve financial management during the audit this year. And we also noted that the district is required to include their official budget on their website. And we noted that that was included in accordance to the section of the Florida statutes. And the last part of our report, as I mentioned, is this one page, which is the opinion on the attestation report. And as part of our review of the district's compliance with the Florida statutes in regard to local government investment policies, we noted that the district was in compliance.
And then just the last thing I want to add, we did receive outstanding assistance from your staff. You have a really good team here, and they help us to make the audit go efficiently. With that, we'll open up for any questions.
Well, Mr. Burke, I commend you and the entire staff for such a wonderful audit. You're to be commended. I know it's a lot of work, and there are a lot of moving parts to it, so thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions or comments?
Is really our
Okay.
key lead on this, and her
All
whole
of
team.
you.
And they do a great job. I just try to support them and treat them right and hope they stick around for a long time. They're doing this is
Certainly
3
hope so.
years in a row now with very clean audits. So thank you, Mr. Talley.
Any board members have any comments?
I just have one question on the pages here, but in your letter, representation letter, item 21, could you just explain what that is? Is that just an plain inventory adjustment? Is that all that is? Just it was
Getting balance adjustment that needed to be made to school food service, just due to, they had a misstatement at the beginning of the year.
so last year's ending.
Last year's ending was incorrect by about $2 million.
All right.
Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve the audit as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Passed unanimously. Again, congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is a progress report on Inlet Grove, the charter school audit. I don't know who would like to address that. I do note that in the minutes of the last meeting that staff was directed to come up with a corrective action plan, and go ahead and you can address that if you like. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Morning. Joe DePasquale, Director of Charter Schools. Since our last meeting, Mr. Oswald asked me to give a brief update. The committee had asked for that based on the audit. We've had numerous meetings with Inlet Grove, their school administration, and their attorney, along with members of the Department of Charter Schools, Office of General Counsel, and also our budget department. Based on those negotiations, we're in the final stages of finishing up the renewal contract for Inlet Grove, which we hope will go to the board on January 22nd. We have right now tentatively agreed to a 15-year renewal charter, which they qualify for per the law because they're a high-performing school, being that they've attained all A's and B's during the last 5 years with no other outstanding issues. So they have agreed to that. We've agreed to that. Inlet has also agreed to relinquish all of their adult ed night school programs back to the district. So Mr. Barch is working on a transition plan for those programs and those kids. They'll be coming back under district operation. Inlet did agree to that, offered to do that. And because of those things and because the law really doesn't, and this is per the Office of General Counsel, Ms. Sagerholm, there's really nothing in the law that, charter statute, that prevents us from going forward with the items I just discussed and not putting them on a corrective action plan. So that is the update since our last meeting. I am due to come back here in December. I was supposed to do it today. Mr. Law asked me to hold off and do it in December. I do have a presentation based on the charter school office and how we monitor charter schools. I believe the committee asked for that some time ago, and that presentation is prepared, but I was asked to hold off until December. Right. So I'll be back in December to present that.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And at this point, I want to give Dr. Emma Banks just a moment. She's in the room. She's the principal at Inlet Grove. And Emma, please be brief, but I'm glad to have you.
Good morning, everyone. First, I would like to thank the Audit Committee for your persistence and making sure that we are treated fair, I would say. That is how I feel. I want to thank...
Speak into the microphone.
Okay. I would like to thank Mike Burke. I would like to thank Heather, Keith Oswald, for helping me make this transition. And first, I want to make sure that it is on the record that I, Emma Banks, request an audit. It was not because I did something wrong that the school decided to come in and do the audit. I request the audit. I also went to Chuck Shaw to ask. So I want that to make sure that's in the record. But out of all of this, I've learned a lot. And as I said earlier, the only thing I want is to be treated fair. We are a charter school. We are here for all the students, not just district school. We're here for all of the students here in Palm Beach County. And again, I want to thank you all for helping me reach my goal that I did not want to be on a correction action plan for something that I had no knowledge that I was doing something wrong. And if my last thought is, I would like, hopefully, everybody here and listen to this, that communication should be well and with the charter school and the schools and the charter department as well as the district, because they are all our children and we must treat them fair. And as a result of the paper article, I want you all to know that was the best advertising for me, because I got 3 people, 3 residents in Palm Beach County who is going to help me make my dream come true of getting a house for our homeless students and a house for veterans. So again, I want to thank you all for that, too.
Dr. Banks, thank you. And I personally, and on behalf of the Audit Committee, want to thank you for your many years of service at Inlet Grove and to our children. So thank you very much. And staff, thank you for getting the correction action report done. We've addressed, I think, Emma's needs. And with that, we'll move on to item 6, audit reports. The first being a follow-up review of educational alternative expenditures and grant compliance. Mr. Chu. Item 6.1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did a follow-up on the audit that we did regarding the grant, and then the staff working on this was Susie Kay. I'd like her to have a brief presentation of this follow-up, please.
Good morning. This is just a very, is this working? It's very quiet. I'm not sure either. Probably don't need it. I can holler pretty good. There we go. So this is just a very brief, this was a follow-up of the audit that we did back, that we released back in April of 2018 for a grant that was a juvenile justice grant the district received for $3.9 million. The original grant term went through December 31st of 2017, and because they had some issues with slow recruiting and a slow start, at the end of the original 3-year period, they had only spent 64% of the grant, and they had not yet obtained all of the full amount of people they needed to do this research study. So they requested from the DOJ a 1-year no-cost extension, which they did receive, and they got that extended through December 31st of 2018. So what this follow-up ended up focusing on was there was one vendor who completed, one consultant who completed their work, and they had issued an invoice in January of 2019 to the district, and because of some confusion and misinterpretation of the no-cost extension, there was, the invoice had not been paid, and there was a lot of communications back and forth between the consultant, the state, DOJ. It was finally realized that around July it needed to be paid, but by the time we got there, the grant had already gone beyond its grace period for reimbursement. So the district ended up not being able to be reimbursed for that final invoice of, I think it was 200 and, what was that last invoice was, there it is, $163,000. So it just, they ended up paying that particular invoice out of the general fund. And that was really the full extent of this follow-up, if you have any questions.
Okay. Any comments? Any questions?
Pretty straightforward.
I'll accept a motion to approve.
Make a motion that we approve the report.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed unanimously.
All right.
Thank you very
Happy
much.
holidays.
Okay, next is Mr. Chu is a special review of temporary staffing costs and food services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a study of the cost for our temporary worker at food services. And the request was to look into, is it less expensive or more expensive to use outside versus the in-house temporary workers? We look into that. In a nutshell, the outside firm, the outside charges a little bit higher. However, there are other, I call it variables, determined variables that could affect they do affect the program, to call the program. So there are several in here, listed in here. What's the operating cost is higher, true, it's higher for outside, but that for inside that we are able to ensure the workforce availability. and then also the technical skill of workers doing in the kitchen. That our staff, of course, they're better trained, and that is very important for assurance of food safety and quality. And then also that the state law requires the clearance check for all employees, and we have absolute assurance that all employees for the school district had gone through the clearance projects. But for outsider, we're not sure, so we said no guarantee. And then last but not the least, that there are other things that need to consider about the recruitment administrative costs, training costs for the in-house. The department agrees with our conclusion, and then, of course, they will be looking into other variables just to ensure the program is operating in the most effective and efficient manner. So I think this gives you some a clearer picture, not just the cost, but there are other variables that need to be considered when we provide the program for our kids. One reminder is that, of course, the inside is a little bit more expensive because we have all the fringe benefits and added to the personnel costs.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions or comments of our board members? Michael? Kathleen? Tammy?
So are we making any kind of recommendation, or we just did a review and presented the results?
We pretty much recommended staff to make sure that all the variables are, when they consider them, that they should have a what we call an optimum combination, because some of them cannot be trade off. So it's a management decision. And also this is a federal funded program, 100%. And then I believe that historically our food services have been given many awards in the past in terms of efficiency and also the layout of the school facilities to attract students, so they stay there for lunch and breakfast.
Okay. Any further questions? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve this review.
I so move.
Is there a second? Someone second? Hello?
Second.
Oh, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Passed unanimously. Okay, next is preparation for IG transition, and before we get started on this, I think Board Chair Mr. Barbieri had a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the school board understands that Mr. Chu's contract, because of the drop, he'll have to exit as Inspector General by the end of April. Although I've spoken with Mr. Chu and in the General Counsel's office, and it's a possibility to extend his tenure with us as Inspector General to the end of May. But the board will be considering at the December 11th school board meeting whether the board wants to have continue with an inside Inspector General, or work with an outside Inspector General contract with someone like the Inspector General for the Palm Beach County government. So the policy provides that the board should appoint an Inspector General with input from the Audit Committee. So I know it's short notice for all of you, but it's on our agenda for December 11th. Our board will be discussing whether or not we're going to go. We want to consider a search, a national search, internal search, whether we want to hire a search firm, have the HR department handle the search, all of those items. And I believe Mr. Chu will be has given you a list of the things that we would be considering. But the school board needs input from all of you for a December 11th board meeting. So I know you're going to be discussing that today. It's important that we get that input as soon as possible so that we don't have another meeting until the middle of January. The school board doesn't. And if Mr. Chu takes his accrued time and leaves the end of March, which he can do instead of April, then we're going to be short on time. So whatever you can do to help us and get a recommendation to us would be appreciated. While I got the floor, Mr. Chairman, I also it's come to my knowledge that RSM's contract ends March 2020 with an option to renew. I asked Mr. Littlejohn to make sure it's on the board's agenda for January, our January 15th school board meeting. So that's going to require all of you to make a recommendation, hopefully to the school board, whether or not to renew the contract for an additional year under the terms. So if you could also get that to us by the January 15th board meeting, so we can make a decision on that. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Chu.
Can I ask a couple questions time-wise, what we're talking? Is this working? Yes. When is our next committee meeting, audit?
December 20th.
That's after your school board meeting. Okay. And we were just handed this package just now. Relative to this topic, right? Is that what this is?
Yes.
Okay. And I guess we're going to discuss this entire package right now to try to accommodate your request? Is that what we're,
Well,
is that what you're asking, Frank?
Yes, that's what I'm asking,
Okay.
that you,
I just want to make sure I understand.
yeah. I mean, it's
I
not,
knew,
it's
I knew
not,
the topic was on here, and I saw in the packet conversation from the prior board meeting, your board meeting.
Workshop.
And I don't know if it's stated any timing in that dialogue.
and I apologize for getting this issue to you today. And it's not critical that you give us a recommendation before the December 11th meeting. The board will decide what to do, but whatever we do, you'll give us input on the appointment of the next Inspector General anyway. But if you can give us recommendations as to what you think the board should do, because we will be considering those issues.
Excuse me, Frank, so is it, we're trying to decide whether we're going inside or outside?
Yes,
That's really the bottom line.
That's the threshold question, whether we go inside or outside. And then if we're going to go outside, then the next question is, do we hire a search firm, or do we have it done in-house through the HR department? Yeah, that basically. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm a little taken back in the timing here on this discussion. Why this didn't come to us last March, so that we could prepare for giving you a really good response if you're asking for a response from this committee? I mean, I don't get the timing here. Pardon me?
Even just a few months ago would have been good.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty serious topic.
Well, again, the board can take action at the December 11th meeting without your input. We will need your input when we actually vote on the new Inspector General, because the policy provides for that. I'm just hoping we can get some recommendations from all of you by the December 11th meeting. If you're not prepared to do that today, I understand. Again, it's not critical. The board will take action whether we have a recommendation from you or not. It's just, since you're so familiar with, obviously, the workings of the Inspector General's office, it would be helpful if we had some recommendations from you.
Mr. Chu.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to clarify that also. I know that it's kind of rushed, but based on the workshop, there are two requests from the school board, as you can see on the screen. Number one, the hiring process for the IG. The second part is that there are comment regarding should our investigative unit be outsourced to the county. So I know that you all have been working with me for the last several years, and what I have given out at this package is something, a recollection of what we have done for the last 7 years. So you are aware that many of these been reporting to you. So I'd like to take the opportunity to walk through this with you so that you get a clearer picture of what we have done before your discussion. So it is something, I mean, these are not news. These are the old material. I just put them together. Yeah, history, yes. A recollection of history. So with that, if you could look at that, I only make a few copies of this, not enough for the audience. The first page is the discussion from the school board on November 6th. And then you pretty much see the comments from the board that we have Mr. Barbier, Ms. Whitfield, Ms. Bell, and also and Dr. Robinson, and you read it, and then we have the continuous support from at least 4 vote very clear on there that we should stay as is, but I let you make that determination. The second,
Okay, question on your first
yes,
tab here.
please, yes.
This is in the middle of a conversation, right? You're
This-
starting with some conversation going on here?
No, this is a verbatim of the
I
discussion.
know, but was there discussion before Rico's? I'm sorry? I'm trying to
is it
understand.
the wrong page?
Can we do something?
I have the wrong page, okay. I have the wrong,
Mr. Dixon?
yes.
Can we hold for a moment?
Yeah.
The agenda you got for the meeting, if you look at item number 7.
Yeah, I have that.
Really.
Okay, but this was just 10, and he just said he was going to go through
and
this.
this really kind of expands upon item number 7.
Yes.
So maybe we should start really with item number 7, and then
Okay.
you move to the
I'm with you.
historical
Okay, I'm
perspective,
sorry.
if you would.
Okay.
Go back to item number 7 on the
It's
agenda.
similar, item number 7. I thought
read
this would
that.
give you a better history from the initiation of the request. And then the next page that we have the verbatim, the transcription of the board meeting on 2 days ago. And so that request pretty much reflect on the screen here. Should we do it, and then that means the outsourcing the internal investigative side, and then also what the audit committee can participate in the hiring of the next IG. So, and then with that, the next tab number 2. Number 2 is the same page as item number 7.1. So I just put it together. That was the same as on the screen. And then the next page you have under tab 3A. I thought it's important that I want you to let you all know that I received a perfect evaluation by the board, which is a reflection of my staff, the audit and investigative unit. And I think some board members mentioned to me that this is unprecedented to have a perfect 100%. So I appreciate that. And also appreciate my staff, their hard working, the diligence in putting quality report for the last almost 8 years as an IG office. And also next page reflect what this committee has evaluated me. I think it's important to point it out along the same line that 89% will rank highly effective. Again, it speaks for the performance of my staff as a whole. And then the next part is kind of lengthy, but I'm not going to go through it. It's a material that I presented to the school board a few months ago regarding what we have done historically. So it gives you a quick history, but I like to bring your attention to let me see, I could find that. It's right here. It's important that we all kind of make a quick view of what we have done. And then the OIG is affected by 6 school board policies. I think this is one of the most, our function is one of the most affected by the policies. And then it's important to identify that what some of the information that we provided to you all and to the school board are highly confidential, like student records, student medical history result, and many of these are confidential, and also the employees, and also this gives you some idea of how efficient we have been doing. For the last 7-8 years, our staffing has been pretty much constant. So this is the inception of the OIG in 2012. So we started to hire people in 2013 and 14. So after 2014, the staff have been constant until we add an intake coordinator. So our staffing had not been increased. The resources have been the same while producing good quality product, as I can say. So this is the audit function. And then it's important to point it out. If you look at this slide here, we try to compare ourselves to a neighboring IG office. The Miami-Dade. Let me see. This is so next slide. So this slide.
This would have been nice to hand out, I'll tell you.
This one was given.
Discussion.
This one was given to the school board.
That's in here? I'm sorry. Oh, it's in here?
Yeah. Yeah. On the hand, and this is on page. On page 18. Page 18.
I have nothing in 3C.
Give them.
Mine's empty.
3C?
Should be in.
3C. That's why 3C? Okay.
No, it's not.
No.
No, it's not. Page 5.
I think Mr. Dixon's.
5
I
of
got it.
3C.
I got it. Thank you. Thank you. I have a bad book. Right. I'll take this page back, though.
You see this here? We compare ourselves with Miami-Dade, the OIG that had a contract with the school district in Miami-Dade. They only handle criminal investigation. All the non-criminal are still being handled by the in-house investigator with the school district. So this is the county OIG. They produced 31 reports during the last 7 years with 6 staff. This is the county IG, and this is the one that the school board was talking about that try to outsource our investigating unit to this organization. For the same time, during the last 7 years, they produced 23 investigative reports. Broward, 29. So we look at us for the same year, same periods. We have 5 investigators. We produce 88 reports. So I think the quantity and quality of the reports speak for the performance of our investigating unit. Any questions?
You want to go first?
You go.
Go ahead.
Okay,
You want me to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
So I reviewed what was sent out in our packet fairly with some level of detail. And I definitely have an opinion about this. And so I'm going to share it. I'm concerned that in considering the outsourcing of the investigations to the county, my concerns are as follows. Number one, what we do, first of all, Mr. Chu, I'd like to say thank you for the work you've done, the staff you've put together, the professionalism, the independence, and I think that we have to take note that what you've done a great job, and you do a great job, and that the way that the investigations and audits are integrated in some cases is very important. My concern is that if we were to outsource it, there's potential overlap and confusion to be established or to be had as a result of that, because your staff, the audit staff and investigations do work closely together, and sometimes you have one or the other or both, and so that's one concern. The second one is that what we do here at this school district is so specialized. And when you deal at a county level with an ID, they're dealing with municipalities and government accounting. It's very different than the type of work that we do in the school district. Their materiality level is a lot higher because of their budget as well, whereas some of the things that are material at our level may not be there, and we might miss things of importance. And the largest concern I have is that for investigations at the county level, the counties, I'm concerned about the children and about children being criminalized. I think that at the county level, you know, they deal with the Palm Beach County Sheriff Department, and if something comes up that is problematic, I just see the potential, given the climate that we have in this society, and for sure locally, with children, and especially children of color, getting in that pipeline of being criminalized. I'm very concerned about that. I think that what is done in-house in the school district, because of the specialization and because of the sensitivity and because we are focused on children, we need to keep this function in-house. We need to not source it out. That's my thought and feeling based on those things. I'm very much against outsourcing to the county. And in fact, initially in the discussion with Mr. Carey, he didn't seem to be interested, and it seems like we are the ones that are pressing the issue, and went back to him again and tried to get some kind of proposal from them. So I'm not really sure that the level of commitment is there as it is with our in-house IG. And secondly, with regards to a search or looking for someone to fill your position, I think that if I recall correctly, you have peer organizations that we deal with. They do the peer audits, and they're trade organizations for IGs. And I would say that I don't think we need to spend a lot of money going to a national search firm, that we could certainly advertise the position locally as well as through the various IG type organizations to find the right person. So those are my comments.
I have a couple of comments, if I could make them, and then Mr. Chu, you can continue. I think changing the audit procedures, I'm not positive about this, but I worry that it might affect the credit rating of the school district. That's number one. And number two, when it comes to dealing with the students and the principals, to me, that's confidential information, and I don't feel comfortable with that going outside the school district. So those are two of the reasons I think that we should remain in-house.
May I also comment? Because I looked at the information too and said, we're really only talking about, if it went out, state of Palm Beach County, IG, $100,000. And in our big budget, that's really not a lot. And when I looked at the evaluations, this committee has rated the IG department here almost perfect. That's the entire team. Why would we start to break down a system that is already successful for
Amen.
all of the reasons that you both have said, in order to save a few dollars, and or the most important thing to me is that we have employees here that have worked very hard and worked up through the ranks. And I think that we give them I say slap in the face, but that's not really what I mean, where we don't allow them or afford them the opportunity to apply for a position that you've probably groomed many of your staff to be able to handle, knowing that you're going to leave. So I've been on the receiving end of your department as a principal and assistant superintendent, and found it very effective, and also a great learning experience, as Emma has said. So if we're allowed to have that kind of opinion, I would also say, let's look inside first and see what people would like to assume your role, and how they would fit into a system that I think is very well respected around the state. Thank you.
I'll just add a couple thoughts, and I pretty much concur with what's been said by the members of this committee. But I have a question about what we're talking about. Are we talking about replacing that person at the top of that grid who is responsible for audits, regular ongoing audits, financial audits, plus investigations, plus administrative functions? What are we talking about? Are we talking sending the investigation out to the county and leaving the internal auditing here?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought we were talking about. I think that adds a lot of complexity into this organization by doing that, number one. We're here for an opinion. We're not evaluating a report here. We're just talking as members of this committee what we think, right? That's what you're looking for? And then I guess after we're done, we'll say, is this what we think as a committee? Is that what we're trying to do? Okay, I'm a little slow sometimes to figure out what I'm supposed to be involved in here. To go outside when you have an operation like this that's functioning, really functioning, with maybe it could be a little better, okay? It's not the best, but you're achieving a lot of success. To go outside I think is a major mistake. I would never, ever consider going outside. I do think the first place I would look is internally with the existing people that are here, the people that are driving the bus. Okay, there's a lot of people driving the bus here. Now, I don't know the capabilities of the people, so maybe we don't have a person that could qualify. But and the people here, this is not disrespectful to people that are here. This is more of a management global look here. But if there's people that could be evaluated to succeed into this position, that's the first place I would go. I think the comment about going to the county and putting this school district into the county, I think is very conflicting.
Me too.
In a lot of ways. You'll lose the independence for sure. Mm-hmm. So I guess I could go on, but it doesn't matter. I guess you get my point. I think to go outside would probably be the last resort. Number one, I would try to see if there's somebody inside that could move into in a transition. It sounds like your transition is really a short window. And if that's not possible, I'd be very aggressive with bringing in a peer review type concept, or maybe allocating money for a better, big, wider search, if that was necessary. That's what that's my thought.
May I ask a question?
Yes, Tammy.
Mr. Chu, without identifying any individual, do you have staff that would be prepared to step into your position and that are qualified, that are ready, that you've groomed or
That you
worked
could
with?
consider.
That you would consider, yes, or recommend?
I think all my staff are capable. So the decisions we make by the board with input from the audit committee. So that is
I want to ask Michael a question.
Sir.
You've been quiet on this discussion, but you had participation in a couple of these board meetings here.
Yes.
What are your thoughts? Are you allowed to speak?
No, I'm like Switzerland, I think, on this issue.
Yes, you are.
But
Nice job, Mike.
Neutral.
but our board has been talking about it for a while. We had a board discussion back on May 8th. We had a workshop on July 31st where Mr. Chu presented some of the information I think that was shared here today. There was some interest. We have a county IG out there, so I was asked to go contact. It's Mr. John Carey. Contact him and see if he'd be interested. And it was solely to take on oversight of the investigation piece. Mr. Carey pointed me towards Dade County schools, which in Dade County we've been referring to as a hybrid model. They have an internal audit function. They have a pretty robust department, but they also contract with the county's IG, and what they do is they provide supervision of the school district staff. So that was kind of essentially Mr. Carey's proposal, was that if we were to do this, we would retain our team of investigators, that piece of the department, and then he would supervise in place of an IG.
No, but he also wanted to take the council, my position too. It was the investigators. It was the intake coordinator and the council.
Right.
Okay.
We
So no.
considered that part of the investigation function. We didn't have a council before we became an IG, when we were just in a district internal auditor.
Indirectly, you did through general counsel's office.
But the email that's included in your packet kind of summarizes what that might look like. Mr. Carey has been very gracious throughout this process. He is not advocating one way or the other. I think he's saying, look, if I'm called upon to serve, this is how I would go about it. He also said, look, if the board decides to keep it in-house, then I look forward to supporting my new colleague in the county here. So I want to be careful to kind of protect him in this process, because it's not one of these situations where he's coming in trying to build his, take on more responsibility and build his department. We approached him on behalf of at least one school board member, maybe a couple others. And anyway, we've been just trying to put the facts out there so that the committee and the board can make their decision.
Mr. Chairman, may I go on?
Yes, please.
And I'd like also to bring your attention to the new material at tab 4.8 on the new material. The new material, not the presentation, not Mr. Dixon. It's the material given out today, this morning.
Okay.
The legislation there. I think it's important to point out that they passed a law in 2018, which stated that if you could, we kind of highlighted it, that all school districts with $500 million in budget required to have an internal auditor. We have one for the last how many years? I've been with the school district for 25 years, so we have one for many years. And also the law is very clear. It said that the auditor shall perform ongoing financial verification, blah, 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 and for determining the adequacy of internal controls designed to prevent and detect fraud, waste, and abuse. So this essentially is investigative functions. So not sure if we outsource this function will be consistent with the requirement of this legislation. So, and also I think that we also issue some IG advisory. We kind of pointed out about the requirement. We did one last year. We did one. This did one early this month. The same thing regarding our functions in fraud, waste, and abuse, and also auditor selection that the chairman of the board needs to be in. So with that, I think we have enough information that for you all, you have said what you have said, so I guess I just wanted to explain it, and this is another piece that we have to be careful.
So if I understand you correctly, you're basically saying that we are following a Florida statute.
Absolutely.
And what we're being asked to do is to deviate from the Florida statute.
It very likely does. So we, at least you want to add on it, if I miss anything?
Wait, I would say,
No, I would
well,
clarify.
all
I
governmental
don't think that's
entities-
accurate.
All governmental entities are required, are by law now required to do some of these same things. I think the thing that probably more relevant, historically, if you remember any of the information your committee was given by Mr. Silver when we started on this journey, be it state government or be federal government that have been the leaders in the establishment of IG offices, you see those combinations there together. And probably the best example I have read, because there's not a lot of research as to why you want these arms to be together, has been, there's a law review article from the Albany Law Review published saying, title is Ensuring Public Trust at the Municipal Level, Inspectors General enter the matrix. They state in here, the use of an auditor alone may be insufficient to fully guard the public interest, as this authority might be limited to financial performance. In contrast, an Office of Inspector General tries to combine the duties of the auditor to conduct those audits with the authority to further investigate fraud, waste, and misuse of public funds. And it's really that's been that combination together where I've seen the greatest result be whether I was working in state government and having such a unit under me and seeing them function together. And even if you look at the state legislation, it clearly anticipate those units being there. And unlike most of the municipal governments, education belongs to the state. They just choose to deliver it through counties. And so we are more closer to being more aligned with state function than a local government, per se, a city, okay, who has its own true charter that it might live and breathe something of. And I think even with state government, the language in it, the statute, clearly anticipate the presence of, at a minimum, those two functioning units, audits and investigation. There was another statement from this article that I would like to mention that I thought was great. They say the Office of Inspector General is typically created with two different but related purposes aimed at the common goal of restoring faith in local government to detect and reduce both waste and wrongdoing. To reduce waste, Inspector Generals are given a mandate to promote the effectiveness and efficiencies of the operations of governmental entities. But since being in this office, we've had quite a few occasions where we have both units working together. and all. So it has been able to function well, I think, because there's one master over the both arms, and there wouldn't be two masters.
Can I just, Mr. Talley, can I provide
Sure.
some clarification?
Yeah, Michael.
So we've got 67 school districts in the state. You know, they align with the counties. They're all different sizes. We've always had an internal audit function. The statute that was passed was really making that requirement that all school districts get some type of internal audit function.
Right.
They could employ somebody or they could contract for it. We're fairly unique with Palm Beach County that we have an IG. Dade County schools and Palm Beach County schools are the only two of the 67 school
Right.
districts in the state that have an IG function. And this whole conversation has been solely around potentially outsourcing the IG function, and then it got narrowed down even more to just that supervisory function. And the part of that discussion is around independence. Our IG reports to the school board. So they're independent of the staff and the superintendent, but there is a relationship with the school board. That's their employer. One of the things, if you go to an outside IG, the county IG, there's a greater level of independence, right? Because Mr. Carey would not be employed by our school board. He's got other customers and a contract.
But he has
The other
to be
piece of that,
responsive
well, the other
to our
piece, just to
school
put
board.
the cards on the table, we've had a relationship with Pinellas County IG so that we contract with them if there's ever a need to investigate a member of our school board or superintendent or the IG itself. Because then to get around, because that creates an independence problem locally, right? So I know that the board member that prompted this conversation was also looking at that, well, how much have we spent going to Pinellas over the years? And that's potentially eliminated if you had the relationship with a local county IG. But I just want to be clear that we're not trying to deviate from any law. We've actually always been above and beyond the law, and we're only one of two districts that has an IG function.
Yeah.
And we've made an investment to do that, obviously. So, thank you.
I would like to say this, Mr. Burt. I see Mr. Carey, if he's hired, steps into the shoes of the district IG, the school board's IG. And the contract is clearly with the school board. Now, the policy itself provides, and it was the board's wisdom that we need an outside IG to investigate allegations of the board members and certain district officers. Okay. I don't see how that should change just because Mr. Carey would or another person would step into the position. They would still be the school board's IG and should be responsive by contract to the school board. Otherwise, there would be something wrong with the process.
I think what Michael's adding is it would be expanded to include these additional board members or officers if you contracted outside.
Well, that would be the board. That would have to be a discussion the
that's-
board would have to undertake because that is engraved in the policy.
Yeah, I'm not here to advocate one way or another. I just wanted to clear up, there was some talk about that we were straying away from the law. That's not true at all. And I just wanted, there's a few
Thanks for the
points you asked me.
clarification.
I just want to try to put the different
Oh,
points
okay.
of consideration on the table.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yes.
Mr. Chu, do you have
No, I'm
else to?
looking for your conclusion or recommendation.
Okay, well, let's have some further
Can
discussion.
I ask one more question?
Michael?
Different. In your capacity of your position in the school district and what's being considered, would you advocate, we know how we got here, would you advocate, would it be your feeling that going outside to an independent IG versus trying to fill that position internally or externally, but keeping it in-house the way we have it now? What is your opinion on that?
So, just as the money guy, there's potentially some savings probably to be achieved by contracting with the county IG. we could save a position.
Keep the finances out.
Oh, well, that's really the only thing I want to opine on.
That's not relative as far as I'm concerned.
But no, I think is the person that gets audited the most.
Thank you.
I should, I want to do, I should, I've been trying to point out, because I became this liaison to the county IG, I felt like I needed to at least put those points on the table. I also would like to say I've enjoyed a great relationship with Mr. Chu. He's always been fair by me. And, actually, I feel like the whole audit committee, we have had a pretty good process here, and I've never felt like I've been, railroaded or anything like that. So I respect Mr. Chu and the work he's done, and I think the board's got a decision here that really rises up to him ultimately. And anyway, so sorry, not much help there.
So could I make
Kathleen?
Could I make a recommendation then that we recommend to the board that they look internally first for the replacement of Mr. Chu, so that Frank has some kind of an idea, one way or another, how we feel, if we do feel that way.
May I extend or expand upon your recommendation? I agree with your recommendation, and I would like to expand and indicate that we recommend to the board that they not outsource to the county as well.
Absolutely.
Are you making that in the form of a motion? Or you made that a motion?
And a motion, please.
No, is this going to be a written narrative statement that we're formulating here as our opinion?
Can you write?
Is this, Frank's here to listen. I mean, you just heard what was said, but is there?
Yeah, but, I'd like you to make a recommendation because I'm just the liaison for the school board. I can't,
But I'm asking the recommendation you can hear or the recommendation you can read.
I think you should give a written recommendation
Okay.
to go to the board, yes.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second first, and then we'll have discussion?
I second.
Okay. Now, further discussion.
We need the detailed wordings of the recommendation.
Yeah, you can figure out the wording. I think it's important for internal continuity, number one. That's one of the reasons I think it's important. I think aligning with the county has some conflicts to it with respect to the school district itself. And I've been having a hard time this morning. Thank you. So I would list a couple things that have just been said, and I would emphasize that the success of the IG department so far is based on the performance of a lot of people that are still here. And just because you lose the leader doesn't mean you can't have someone step up and succeed to that person, and maybe even be better because of the way they were gravitated to that position. I would emphasize, that's my feeling. If you want to put that in the statement, you can put that in the statement. You don't have to put it in there, but that's how I feel.
I concur.
Tammy, any further comments?
I would think that Mr. Chu would be the initiator of that process for looking for his successor and identifying staff and, letting them present an their interests. And then, I don't know what the process is, the formal process, but I think that you've got to play an integral role in that process.
I believe that the school board has certain requirement for HR to perform. So I will have my input.
Yeah, HR has to be involved.
HR.
Sure. But I would also put in a bullet point here to this comment, the timeline on this, that we're saying it has to be, if you're going to stay inside, you got to act quickly. You can't sit on this thing. You got to move on this because of the timeline, if the board decides to go that way.
So this recommendation, we have two parts. Number one, regarding mine with replacement. The other is regarding outsourcing the investigation unit. Okay.
And the motion addressed both.
Right.
Both of them.
It did. Right.
So stay inside and no outsource. We're not interested in the county.
That is correct.
It's really kind of the bottom line. And then the board can do what they see fit.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed unanimously. Okay. Thank you all. This has been an important recommendation that we're making to the school board. Obviously, they're going to do what they feel is best, but they've asked for what our thoughts are, and we've given them to them. So we've got just a couple other things. Item,
Before we go on, Mr. Chair, may I make one comment? Mr. Chu, in the additional information that you presented, and there was your evaluation from the audit committee as well as the school district. In the past, as I recall, we have a compilation that's presented to the audit committee showing all of our evaluations, and then we have an opportunity if we wish to have any discussion. We didn't have that this year, and I'm just requesting that going forward, if that process can be continued.
it was in here.
No, we didn't, but this is the first time we're seeing it.
Oh, okay.
And it already went to the school district, school board. That's all.
We're going to look at it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, next is just an FYI, they're investigative reports. You want to make any comments on those?
No,
or
sir,
not?
no.
Okay, then we'll go on to internal funds audit.
It's an update of how many.
One.
Yeah, that's the number of schools that we completed, so it's an ongoing process, Mr.
Okay. Are there any other comments to come before the board? Okay, if not, our next meeting is scheduled for December 20th, and I want to wish each and every one of you happy holidays and a happy Thanksgiving, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting adjourned.
Mr. Chairman, we're going to draft the accept. We're going to draft the accept wording of recommendation, and then we will send it to you all. If you have any input, please do that, and then we will make
That's fine.
adjustment accordingly.
That's all
Thank
right.
you.
It's just confusing with
Do we take these?